Okay, so we're holding on to Chav Tessim and Bees. We just finished discussing the two reasons why in the Beis Hamikdash they would not use the wood of Zayis and Geffen for the Mizbeach. The Gemara quoted two reasons, Rav Papa and Rav Acha bar Yaakov. Rav Papa said that the reason is Mishum de Katri, because these types of wood have lots of knots, and therefore they cause a lot of smoke, and that's the reason why they did not use it in the Beis Hamikdash. Rav Acha bar Yaakov said, Misham Yishov Eretz Yisrael. That the reason is because these are good chashva trees, and if we use them, Eretz Yisrael is going to be lacking. It's not going to have sufficient trees, etc. Off of that, asks the Gemara, Mesu, we started reading the Kasha. We're going to pick it up from there to get a running start. We're basically smack in the middle of Chav Tessim and Beis. Meisvei says the pasuk Aleitzim Sharleitz. From here we learn out what wood is used for the mizbeach, wood that completely burns up and becomes fire. What does that mean? Says the Brisa Dukrei Shvod. Dukrei Shvod. This is referring to smooth spits that what Deloy Katri that do not have any knots, and they don't have any knots inside of it. That's what the Brisa starts off by saying. Now the Brisa explains what exactly does that mean. And this should hopefully sound familiar. We had the exact line in the Mishnah: is all wood kosher? Says the Gemara, hey, yes, kol ha'etzim ksherim chutz, which two woods are not? Min zayis v'gefen, olive and grapevine. Aval, even though everything is kosher, be'elu hayurigilim, what would they use? B'merbayi shalteina, the young branches of the fig tree, v'shel egois, and of the nut tree, v'shel eit shemen. Rabbi Eliezer, Ma'isef, Eliezer adds on, av shal mayish, v'shel aloin, v'shel dekel, v'shel chara, v'shel shekma. Rabbi Eliezer adds on, they would use 4 other types of trees. Well, you want to know exactly what they are. This is the blackberry, oak, palm, carob, and sycamore tree. So that's a brisa. From this brisa, says the Gemara, we have approved to which answer is the real reason why you should not use zayis and geffen. Explains the Gemara. If you're going to say, according to Mandam, because it has knots, makes a lot of sense. What's the machloikes? There's different level of knots. One opinion holds, even though there's no knots on the outside, even though there are knots on the, one more time, even though there are no knots mibaroi, but since there are knots, I said it backwards. Nice, okay, just a table. Hey, Mayor. Hey, cutie, you want to come sit in my lap? Okay, we have a guest at the shir today. Okay, says the Gemara, one more time, that we can explain that the machlokes is, even though there are no knots, even though there are no knots from the inside, since there are knots on the outside, therefore, it's going to be okay. However, and what's the other opinion hold? Loi meisina, therefore we don't use it. No, since at the end of the day there are no knots on the inside, you bring it. So basically, let's just make this simple. That it's all about knots. We see that according to this brisa, it just depends on how much knots. Knots are in the wood, those, like you look at the wall, you can see all the knots, right? You see all those little circle thingies in the wood, those are called knots. So we're seeing that the machlokes is at what level there are knots on the inside or the outside. But says the Gemara, what's the kasha? But according to Mishom Yishav Eretz Yisrael or Vachavar Yaakov, said what was the reason? The reason was Mishom because of Yishav Eretz Yisrael. Dekel Milesim Mishom Yishav Eretz Yisrael. I think someone in this room asked this kasha. Someone said, what do you mean? What about the other trees? Are the other trees not a problem of Yishav Eretz Yisrael? So asks the Gemara that exact kasha. The dekel is a chashuva tree as well. So the dekel, the palm tree, also should have a problem of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. And yet, what did the Brisa say? It only spoke out the issue of the katri. It has knots. So what do we see? The Gemara is proving that we have two reasons why we do not use geffen and zayis. So which reason is the right reason? The reason of knots, not the reason of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Responds the Gemara, not a good raya. Amar loch u'letaymech. And according to your reasoning, we're about 6 lines from the bottom. Te'ena lesvim shemishav Eretz Yisrael elamaisach lameimar. And that was exactly the kasha someone else asked over here. What are the te'ena? Meaning, it's all about Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. It's all about using good trees. There are many good trees. The geffen, the zayis, the te'ena, the dekel. These are all good trees. So why didn't the Brisa list those reasons? Says the Gemara, te'ena d'la'avdi peira. Must be. You know why it didn't list the te'ena? It didn't list the te'ena because we're talking about a certain type of te'ena that what? Less bay peira. D'la'avdi peira, that doesn't make fruit. So now we're learning that the detail of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael is what? Is a chashuva tree that gives off fruit. So, but if we could explain that it's a tree that doesn't give off fruit, then that's the reason. That's the reason why the Brisa didn't list it. Similarly, we could explain dekel nami, the palm tree as well, b'deloi of the peira. So do we have a raya? No. We thought we have a raya from the Brisa as to the reason why you can't use geffen and zayis. That the reason is it's all about knots and not about Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Says the Gemara, no. It really could be it is about Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Why didn't it list that reason? Because it's talking about fruit, trees that do not produce fruit. Dekel trees, te'ena, that do not produce fruit. So says the Gemara, it's a very good answer. 2 lines from the bottom, chav tesem and bees. But we have a fundamental problem. Says the Gemara, umika te'ena d'lavdi peira. A te'ena, a fig tree. Is there such a thing as a fig tree that doesn't produce fruit? We would think every fig tree by its very nature is a fig tree. So is there such a thing as a fig tree that doesn't produce fruit? Says the Gemara in yes. Kedir Rechava. As we saw that which Rechava said. Amar Rechava, that's all his name. Rechava taught us. Mesi te'ena chazirta. Rechava says, with regard to a certain type of farming methodology, says Rechava, you know you should do? You should bring te'enim chavirta, which is white te'enim. Hey, you're here also?
Mayor.
What's up, kid?
Come to Mommy.
Want to go to Mommy? No? Okay, I'll bring him outside soon, okay? It's okay. Tamar Rechava, Maisi te'ena chavirta, should bring white te'enim. V'shayfile, let's move over to the top of Lamed Amar Aleph Chevra. We're about to finish the second parak, Baruch Hashem. Says the Gemara, V'shayfile b'chavla, and you should take these white te'enim, these white figs. What should you do with them? You should rub them with a chevel, with a rope. Titzifta, that's made out of palm. Titzarech alei bizra. And what's going to happen now is the seeds are going to stick to it. So we're making an interesting concoction. No one has any clue what's going on here, but don't worry, the Gemara is going to explain. V'kavri, and plant it. Heicha damasik yama sirtoin, and plant this tree where the yam, where the sea gives off its sirtoin, which is the sediment of the ocean. So Rechav is explaining a certain methodology of planting a tree. What's going on over here? White figs, rub it with a rope, the seed sticks to it, put it in the ground. What are we doing? Says Rechava, you know what you're going to do now? Because what's going to happen is, kaira avda. When you do this, it's going to produce a kaira, a very strong beam. It's going to produce a tree which is very strong, but peira loy avda. Rechava is teaching you a farming method, how to produce a fig tree that doesn't produce figs. Why would you want that? Because it's a very strong kaira, produces a strong beam. Utlas breche minayu. And if you take 3 of the branches of this tree, you know how strong it is. Loi machazki lehu gamla. A bridge cannot support them. Basically, it's a very strong tree. So what do we see from this whole long story about these white figs rubbed with rose, put on seeds, planted in the ground? It's very strong. What do we see? There's such a thing as a fig tree that doesn't produce figs. So let's circle back around, and therefore the Gemara is explaining there's such a thing as a palm tree that doesn't produce fruit as well. And therefore, what's the raya? There is no raya. So we go back full circle, and we have two reasons why you don't bring the gefen and the zayis as the wood of the mizbeach. What are the two reasons? One reason is because it has knots. The other reason is because of Yishav Eretz Yisrael. Do we have a raya from this brisa to one of the reasons? The answer is no. We thought we had a raya from the brisa because of the fact the brisa honed in and was speaking only about the knots. And now we see that's not true because that brisa could have been just referring to trees that don't produce fruit. We continue 5 lines down. Lamed Amud Aleph, the 2 dots. Sider es hamaracha gedayla. The Mishnah continued that what did he do? That the Kohen made the maracha. Maracha is a word you need to know when you talk about the Beis HaMikdash. When you talk about the Mizbeach, the maracha is the wood, the fire, the pyre, if you want to know the English word, Pyre, on top of the Mizbeach, the large maracha. Says the Gemara, Ravuna v'Rav Chisda. When we said in the Mishnah, when they made this large fire, let's remember, what type of bonfire was it? Not like a teepee, but rather what was it? It was a log cabin bonfire. Says the Gemara, Ravuna v'Rav Chisda Chad Amar. One says, Kidei shetehei haruach min hasheves boi. We said that they used to make a chaloin, a window in the side of this bonfire. Again, they make it's like a log cabin, right? Four logs of wood, up. And it said that on the side, they left a window open. Why do they leave a part open in the log cabin? Says the Gemara, 2 reasons. Ravuna v'Rav Chisda. The reason is so that the wind would blow in it. Why do you want your wind to blow into your log cabin? Not to blow it out, but to stoke the fire, to keep it aflame. To light the kindlings from within there, meaning that they would feed the fire in there. Again, when a fire burns down, you have little embers. So what you do is, we all know, after you make the big logs, what do? You put in the little twigs. So how do you get the little twigs in that are going to burn well? So they made a little window in there to put the little twigs into the fire to keep it burning. Asks the Gemara, Meisvei, Reva Chaya Ben Agezirin. The Mishnah said, between the logs, they left a little bit of a space. Why did they leave a little space? Shayamatitin alita meisham. They left a little space in order to feed the fire. So I don't understand. If they left a little space to feed the fire, why do they also have to leave a window to feed the fire? Answers the Gemara, Amar Lacha, you know why? Mekaymais avdi. They did both. They left spaces to feed the fire from there, left a window to feed the fire from there, but it's not necessarily a raya as to why they left the window open. So we have 2 reasons why they left the window open. Hadran aloch ra'uha echav. We have another 3 minutes, so let's begin the next parak. The next parak, this 3rd parak, is unique, as many parakim in Tamid are, in that the parak is all mishnayis. This parak consists of 9 mishnayis. In your Gemaras, you don't see it broken up as mishnayis. They don't put the little aleph, beis, gimel, dal in there. But in reality, it's 9 different mishnayis. It's the whole parak. A bunch of parakim in Tamid is this way. So let's begin. Amar lahem hamemoina. Amar lahem hamemoina. So now we're going into the payasais. What were the payasais? The payasais were the lotteries. Why do they perform a lottery in the Beis HaMikdash? The lottery was performed to know who did which avodah. So they did the lotteries. And what was the first thing done in the Beis HaMikdash we already spoke about? Was the Trumas HaDeshen, was the removal of the ashes. That was pious number 1. That was the first lottery. Says the Gemara, Amar lehem hamamayna. So the mamayna would come to them and say, Ba'u kam vehefisu. And let's do the second lottery. What is the second lottery? So lottery number 1 we spoke about is what? Trumas HaDeshen, clearing of the ashes. What's the second lottery? Mihashoychet, who's going to be the one to shecht the carbon tamid? Mihazayrek, who's going to sprinkle the blood? Mi midashen mizbeach hapinimi. Who's going to clean out the inner mizbeach? Mi midashen es haminayra. Who's going to clean out the minayra? Mi mala ivarim lekevesh. Who's going to take the ivarim, the limbs, and put it up on the ramp of the mizbeach? So 4 different avodos that they raffled off. Again, shechting, sprinkling for blood, cleaning out the inside mizbeach, cleaning out the menorah, 5, and bringing the ivarim onto the ramp of the mizbeach. Now, what were the ivarim? Now the Mishnah lists the whole procession of the ivarim that were brought up. Haroish, one kohen held the head, v'haregel shel yamin and the right leg, shtei yadayim, the 2 arms, ha'oiketz, oiketz is called the haunch in English, a part of the animal, haregel shel small, the left leg, ha'chazeh v'ha'geira, the breast and the cod. If you look at the back of your Gemara, I believe there's a picture where all these are broken up. Shtei defanois, the 2 flanks of the animal, hakarbayim, the innards, the hasoiles, and now together with all the parts of the animal, what would they bring? Soiles, flour. What was the flour for? That was for the carbon mincha that was brought together with the carbon. Tamid, vechavitin, and the pancake, the griddle cake type of item, vehayayin, and the wine. Why is there wine? Because in the nesachim, what's the nesachim? They poured wine onto the mizbeach together with the carbon. So if you were counting, that was 9 different kohanim. So after the 4 kohanim that would do the shchita, the zrika, the cleaning out of the inner mizbeach, cleaning out of the menorah, then are the 9 kohanim that did what? Carried up all the different parts of the animal onto the ramp, not onto the mizbeach. They brought them on the ramp, and then we're going to see in a little bit whether the same kohanim took it from the ramp and put it up on the mizbeach, or whether it was a different kohen. Hey, Fisu, we're going to finish with this. They did the lottery, and Zacha Misha Zacha, he who won the lottery. That's the first Mishnah of this 3rd parak. Actually, let's just do one more Mishnah. I know it's going to drop longer today, but we have a little bit extra time. Amar Lohen. Now the Mamaina would say to them, "So go out, you got to know, is it morning time?" They didn't have fancy watches and clocks like we do. They had to know, did the Zman of Shechita come? Im higiu, if he saw that indeed the sun started rising at a particular point. Haraya Omer, what would the one that see? It says, Bar Kai. That was the signal to know that it was morning. Bar Kai means there is light. He would say there is light. Maisi ben Shmuel Omer, he argues, and he says no. They would ask him, is the entire eastern side lit up until it reaches Chevron? And he would say yes, if indeed it was that level of light. And at that point, once it's light, what do we do? Amar Lahem, the Mamaina would say to them, bring me the Talah. You got to bring me the lamb. That's the first karba. Lishkas hatalayim. Says the Gemara, 1 second. V'harei lishkas hatalayim nesurim emixay yisveinis ma'aravis. But isn't the lishkas hatalayim the southwestern corner? Isn't. And where was this room that held the talayim? In the southwestern corner of the. Let's stop over here. This Mishnah of Amar Lahem Tze'u v'Viu the talah. That's where we're going to pick it up from over here, in which the Mishnah continues. Once it's morning, they brought the talah for the karba.